We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Absolute Power Task Force VII Issue 1. This 7-part miniseries from DC Comics in 2024, and it is a direct tie-in to the Absolute Power miniseries. Now this one is a weekly book, so it will wrap up before the final issue of Absolute Power, supposedly. This issue is called Last Son, written by Leah Williams, art by Caitlin Yarsky, colors by Alex Gamarez, letters by Dave Sharp, cover by Pete Woods, assistant editor Jillian Grant, senior editor Brittany Holzer, group editor Paul Kaminsky. Cover's well done overall. I think Mary Marvel's face looks a little weird, but at least it's a dynamic cover. Something is happening. Now this picks up after the events of Wonder Woman issue 11, which is a tie-in but not a mandatory issue. They do recap the events in here fairly well, but it takes a little while to get to that, so you kind of have to bear with it for a few pages. Amanda Waller is sending one of the Amazo robots out, and she's using Parasite to hunt down the Marvels. So Mary and Captain Marvel, the Captain, have managed to escape to the Rock of Eternity, and they're using Parasite to track them down, and effectively torturing Parasite along the way. Now Mr. Dinosaur is cataloging everything in the room of souvenirs, where Billy and Mary are trying to find some weaponry. They kind of go overboard with the joke of his compulsive filing and paperwork. I get what they were going for, but it's getting a little old with that. And that's where they recap what's going on. So their power is mostly drained, so they need magical weapons to compensate, since it's quite possible they won't even be able to transform. So when the Amazo robot shows up and does bad things, they look like they're in some trouble, but Black Adam is there to try and help out. Now this Amazo robot has absorbed power from the Super Family, and it is putting up a heck of a fight against Black Adam. And it's quite possible that something isn't computing with these Amazo robots, because this is acting a little weird. Although the ending is not that good for anyone, and there's a special guest appearance by Steve Trevor, who apparently is getting recruited to work hunting the superheroes down. And there is a grammatical error at the very end where it says next issue is Atlantis' new ruler, and they use apostrophe S, which is grammatically incorrect because it already has an S, so it doesn't need an apostrophe S. It just needs an apostrophe. So good job, editorial. You guys really know what you're doing. But overall, I thought this was a decent issue. It's a good self-contained story. I didn't hate it. I wasn't in love with it, but it wasn't bad. Was it $4 good? I'd say it was $2 good. The art is only okay. The Amazo robot looks really cool, but all the faces of the regular humans have weird expressions and occasionally more manga mouth. It did look a bit cartoony to me, but I didn't hate it. It just wasn't that good. Parasite looked pretty cool, and what happens to that guy, boy, he really gets put through the ringer. But overall, I thought it was a decent issue, and I'd recommend reading it if you can find it for about $2. Otherwise, just wait for the trade paperback. But it is nice to see an actual self-contained issue that doesn't require you to buy all 7 issues. I'm sure it will build on itself story-wise, but you can enjoy this issue on its own as its own story. It's just kind of a depressing story. But that is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Absolute Power Task Force VII Issue 2. This is a 7-part miniseries from DC Comics in 2024. And this issue is another standalone story, but it does lead into Absolute Power Issue 2. It's written by John Layman, art by Max Rainer, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Dave Sharp, cover by Pete Woods, edited by Jillian Grant and Paul Kaminsky. So the Doom Patrol is on the surface. They've been battered and their powers stolen, except Robot Man, who is a construct. Now, Doom Patrol had been out testing their amphibious abilities of their Doom Patrol ship, and they found Aquaman and Tempest fighting a construct of some kind, which appeared to be an Amazo robot. So they tried to help out and ended up having their powers stolen. They run across Tempest, and they kind of compare notes. Obviously, since Aquaman's been captured, Atlantis might be a target, so they head down to Atlantis in their ship, and they find Depth Charge. That is the name of the the Amazo bot that is supposed to pacify Atlantis. He's also got Aquaman captured, and he is using a combination of stolen powers from both one of the Doom Patrol members and Aquaman. Now, this applies to telekinesis and animal empathy, which is able to manipulate feelings, that sort of thing, but somehow the feedback also comes back onto depth charge. It's just part of the empathy power, and that is making him a little frenzied. He also has Elasto-Woman's growth abilities and Negative Man's negative energy bolts, so he's using those to try and keep down the Atlanteans. Aquaman tells them to stand down, but that's not good enough for depth charge. He doesn't want them listening to Aquaman, he wants them listening to him. Things get a little out of hand, and unfortunately the heroes realize that they are out of their depth, for lack of a better pun, but Aquaman has a plan. What I really liked about this issue is Aquaman is not treated like an idiot. For some reason, a lot of people think he's a joke. He's King Arthur under the sea, but they treat him like a joke character, so he's often portrayed as kind of dumb, but that is not the case here. I thought he was handled really well, and it was nice to see the Doom Patrol helping out in the storyline here. And where they're going looks pretty interesting. I'm real interested to see Absolute Power issue 2 now. There is a epilogue on here with Steve Trevor, and it's pretty obvious that Sarge Steele's setting him up, and things aren't looking good for Steve. But overall, I thought this was a great standalone that ties in well to the miniseries. The art's pretty solid. I like the cover. It does relate to what's going on. There is a sense of action to it, which is really cool. The Professor doesn't appear in here, but he's on the cover for some reason. Nonetheless, pretty solid cover. Probably would have got me to buy the book, even though it was a miniseries, but since this is a standalone issue that only the epilogue really ties in, the Steve Rogers part, or the Steve Trevor parts, I've probably called him Steve Rogers a few times. It's a great standalone that only has the Steve Trevor parts at the end that are in the epilogue tying into the previous issue. The rest is sort of exploring a different aspect of what's going on, and I thought it worked really, really well, and it set up issue 2 pretty well for Absolute Power. So while I don't think this is critical to the miniseries, I am going to recommend getting it if you're reading the miniseries, because this does have a lot to do with why Atlantis is not in play and what Aquaman's doing and how he got to where he's at. So a very fun issue with some pretty interesting story elements, and like I said, it was really fun to see the Doom Patrol having a pretty big part in this story that is part of a bigger miniseries. So a really solid issue overall, and I was very happy with it. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Absolute Power Task Force VII Issue 3. This is a 7-part mini-series from DC Comics in 2024. This time we are focusing mostly on the Justice Society. They apparently had gone to see Hal Jordan at his trailer, and that occurred in Green Lantern number 13. Well, things didn't work out, clearly, so the JSA is on the run from an Amazo with some Green Lantern powers, because he robbed most of them of their powers, including Alan Scott, and that's changed the equation a little bit in this story. So this one was written by Jeremy Adams with art by Marco Santucci. Arif Prianto did the colors, Dave Sharp on letters, Pete Woods did the cover, edited by Marquis Draper, group editor Paul Kaminsky. Now the cover's okay, but it does relate to what's going on. Unfortunately, 2 of the people on the cover do not appear in this book at all. So having absorbed Alan Scott's powers, it's changed something in the Amazo bot, and that's making it a little slower to react. Now, it tries to talk to Waller, and she is not listening at all. And that means the Amazo bot has to find where they're headed, which is the Tower of Fate. Meanwhile, Steve Trevor is trying to uncover what exactly is going on in the facility where they're housing the superheroes and supervillains. He's trying to figure out what Waller is up to and why the heroes and villains are separated. If they're all depowered, why not have them all in the same cell blocks? But things aren't looking real good for anyone in this issue. issue. The Amazo bot does catch up with our heroes, and one of the heroes has to make an important sacrifice that may work out in their benefit. But the storyline is continued in Green Lantern issue 14, which I'm not really interested in. So this one really isn't as good of an issue as the others, because this is mostly just a Green Lantern fill-in that probably should have just been an extra issue of the regular Green Lantern series. It's interesting that there are some differences with the Amazo bots, but this is just a selling gimmick to get you to buy Green Lantern 13 and 14. And I'm not real interested in that, because there's a lot of jumping around with some of these extra issues, and so far issue 2 is the only one I would actually recommend out of this series if you're only going to buy one or two of them. This was well written for what it is, but it's just sort of a cash grab to get you to buy 13 and 14 of Green Lantern. So you're just boosting sales by getting the middle of the story that should have been in the regular title. And that's really, really annoying. But if you were reading Green Lantern and needed the middle part of a story, here it is. Otherwise, I would say skip this one. It's an okay story, as I said. It just really doesn't add anything that you couldn't pick up from a couple of dialogue boxes in one of the other titles or reading the Green Lantern storyline. So if you're just looking to get the most impact out of Absolute Power and you just want to get the core miniseries and one or two other books, I would say skip this one. Get issue 2. It's way more relevant to what's going on in the books, and it was a little bit better written. This one was fine. I just didn't really feel like I got $4 for it. It felt like an interlude for issues 13 and 14 of Green Lantern, so this should have been issue 14, and they should have had the third part as issue 15. Instead, they wanted to cross-promote and get you to buy yet another book, which is a little bit sinister in my opinion. But I think that's a little bit sinister, and it's the kind of cash grab stuff I expect from the big two, and it really annoys me. So I was kind of annoyed, because I was actually enjoying having more or less a complete story. And this one, you could read it as its own thing, but there's not a lot of actual resolution. So I was kind of annoyed with that. So if you're going to pick it up, get it cheap. Otherwise, you could just skip this one. Paper quality's not that good, so you're really not getting your value for the dollar. And at $4, I would rather just wait and grab it out of a discount bin or a back issue bin for $1 or $2. Or get the trade paperback super cheap. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Absolute Power Task Force VII, Issue 4. This is a 7-part miniseries from DC Comics in 2024. This issue was written by Pornsak Piché Shodi, art by Claire Rowe, Lee Lothbridge on colors, Dave Sharp letters, Pete Woods did the cover, Ivan Cohen associate editor, Katie Kubert editor. The cover's okay, could have been a little bit more dynamic than just failsafe lurking above the characters here, and everybody looks very effeminate, like they're wearing lip gloss. So it's okay, not my favorite by any stretch. So hiding deep within the Court of Owls lair are some of our heroes, and Failsafe is hunting them. So we have Voodoo, Robin, Nightwing, Miss Martian, the Ray, and they are trying to come up with some kind of plan. We see that Miss Martian is a little unused to her natural abilities because she's used to having her telepathy and shapeshifting and all the other stuff that comes along with it from being a Martian. How those powers got stripped away is a little unclear because she's not technically a meta. Those are natural powers, much like Superman's. So they don't really go into great detail on that, just kind of go with it. Well, while Voodoo is out trying to look around, she gets attacked by Failsafe, and the others have to come to her defense, and they have these experimental weapons that are supposed to help, but they really don't. Then Failsafe does something very Batman and hurts somebody pretty bad, and that makes everybody freak out and act like they've never done this before. Like they've never seen anybody get mildly hurt. In this case, it's not such a devastating wound that's going to kill anyone, but it is going to incapacitate someone, and they all freak out. So everybody responds like an emotional basket case and gets themselves in big trouble. And Failsafe reveals that he has some new powers to go with the old ones. Steve Trevor, for his part, is trying to figure out what is going on. He has infiltrated the section of the prison where the supervillains appear to be building something, which looks vaguely like a Stargate. And by vaguely, I mean it looks a lot like a Stargate. So I guess SG-1 is going to show up? I don't know. Unlike previous issues, I think this one was a bit weaker. Not the worst thing I've ever read, but definitely not the best. Was it worth $4? No, not really. The art's okay. Not too bad. I thought the interior art was much better than the cover, but not my favorite. Unfortunately, I thought the characterizations were largely kind of lazy. Everybody reacts overly emotionally instead of with the calculating logic of a combat vet, which most of these people are. They've seen a lot of violence over the years. So what sets them all off is borderline ludicrous because they've inflicted damage like this to others before, and they've definitely have seen it before. They've seen people get killed before. So the way everybody overreacts to the situation just plays right into Failsafe's hands. And I suppose that was just a MacGuffin to get the story going, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for the characters, especially two street-level vigilantes like Robin and Nightwing. They have seen this kind of violence perpetrated by Batman and their other allies before, and they've absolutely seen it from supervillains before. So them overreacting really didn't seem to be within character. It was just sort of an overly cinematic response that is kind of trite. So I'm not going to recommend this one unless you could get it out of a dollar bin. The core ideas are fine. It's just not that good of an installment in the series, and it really doesn't add anything to the overall narrative other than the Steve Trevor scene. And even that is incomplete because you have to have read the previous issues and probably the future issues to really understand what's going on with that. And it was absolutely the most interesting part of this issue. So if you're a completionist like I am, you'll probably want to pick it up, but I would say get it at a discount and just wait, or get the trade paperback cheap, because so far issue 2 is the shining star in this miniseries, and the others are just kind of readable, which is not a stellar recommendation. So that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Absolute Power Task Force VII Issue 5. This is a 7-part miniseries from DC Comics in 2024. This issue was written by Alex Packnadel, art and color by Pete Woods, letters by Dave Sharp, cover by Pete Woods, ed by Chris Rosa, group editor Paul Kaminsky. This time we have Velocity chasing Barry Allen as he is trying to find something to stop the Amazo bot from getting him. Now he is heading for a specific object inside the Flash Museum. That doesn't really work out, so Barry has to phase through the floor, which interests the Amazo bot quite a bit. Now the Amazo bot has absorbed all the other speedsters except Barry, so Barry tries to trick him into the Speed Force, which the Amazo bot seems to have trouble actually accessing. But since apparently he's absorbed the memories of the speedsters, he begins to learn some of their secrets as well. There isn't much of a resolution here, but we do get a little bit more about what is going on with Amanda Waller and her deals with various people in the multiverse. The multiversal generator is working now, and she has made a deal with a very nasty group. Overall, as an independent story, it's not bad. Is it really worth $4? No, it's a dollar bin book. It's pretty well written, and it's a fine slice of life story. There's no real resolution, though, and it doesn't add a whole lot to the overall story, other than to learn that the Amazo bot does have access to memories of the other speedsters, and some of their abilities can be gleaned from these memories. So the paper quality is trash, the story's okay, the art's okay. I didn't really have a problem with that. A few panels were a little bit annoying, but overall it's not bad. But it's just not $4 good. This is absolutely dollar bin material all day long. So if you're thinking about picking it up, grab it out of a dollar bin or wait for the trade paperback. But I would say get this out of a discount bin if you really want to read it, because the trade paperback's probably going to be too expensive. And so far, this is the second best issue, and I would still recommend getting issue 2 over any of the others so far, but this would be a close second place, because it was at least a fairly interesting story. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Absolute Power Task Force VII, Issue 6. This issue takes place after the events of Absolute Power Issue 3 and Absolute Power Super Sun number 1, which is a one-shot. And this is a tie-in to the 2024 DC summer event called Absolute Power. This issue was written by Stephanie Williams, art by Carrie Randolph, colors by Alex Guimarães, lettered by Dave Sharp, cover by Pete Wood, edited by Brittany Holzer and Kathleen Wisniewski, group editor Paul Kaminsky. The cover's okay, it does relate to what's going on in the book. We start off with an Amazo robot heading toward Themyscira. It's the one that's absorbed Wonder Woman's powers, and it's there to punish the Amazons for interfering, and also to acquire something called the Well of Souls, not related to Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie at all. Totally not related. So the Amazons prove to be very minimal resistance to this insanely powerful robot that's just marauding across their island, and it starts stealing souls from the Well of Souls, because apparently there's a way for people to get resurrected maybe out of this, and it's extracting their powers out of it. And they mentioned several characters like Phantom Lady, Blue Ice, Fury, Firebrand, Mind Boggler, and Whisperia, so that was actually pretty interesting. And then they play a recording from Amanda Waller, and the Amazo robot literally shakes its finger at them. We find out that Steve Trevor is been caught. He saw a little too much from the multiversal gateway / Stargate knockoff, and he's on the run and runs into a couple people that are planning an escape attempt, which is not telling you anywhere in the book that this has happened up to this point. It's obviously happened in some other book, and they never tell me where, so I'm never going to look at it. But the story is continued in Wonder Woman 13, so I'm assuming it has something to do with Wonder Woman 12, maybe? I don't know. Don't really care. I'm not going to go buy that book because I have enough investment in this miniseries. Whatever happens with Steve Trevor, I guess I'll find out when I find it in a dollar bin somewhere. Overall, this issue is just okay. It's not really worth the cover price. Finding out what was going on with Steve Trevor was pretty interesting, but they're not even going to wrap it up in this miniseries? That's insulting. I'm kind of annoyed with that. Also, the story is inconsequential at all to the overall miniseries, unless it's some sort of MacGuffin to get these other older characters back, like Phantom Lady and the other souls that were taken out of there. But this will probably be forgotten about and thrown in the dustbin of history, because most of these issues have been. I would say this is probably the third or fourth best of the series, but that's not saying much. So far, issues 2 and 5 are probably the most important ones that actually add anything even remotely to the Absolute Power storyline, but it's largely just a one-shot that's tangentially related. It's way more related to the miniseries than Super Sun was, but I'm still not super impressed with most of the issues of this. So I would say get it out of a discount bin. Don't pay anywhere near cover price, especially because they've been building up this Steve Trevor storyline just to direct you to a different book. And I find that incredibly insulting. It's just a bait and switch by DC. So they don't even care enough about their own audience to complete a storyline in the miniseries that they started it in. They gotta send you to a different book entirely. So a lazy attempt at a cash grab from DC that really annoyed me. Beyond that, get it out of a discount bin for $1 or $2 and you'll be a lot happier with the result. So I'm not gonna really recommend it unless you can get it that way. I'm not gonna get this in trade paperback. It's just not that important to the storyline, and it's largely not that compelling so far in the series. Maybe next issue will have something epic to conclude it, but I highly doubt it. But that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Absolute Power Task Force VII, Issue 7. This is the final part of the miniseries from DC Comics that ties into the Absolute Power event. This was written by Dan Waters, art by Fran Gallan, lettered by Dave Sharp, cover by Pete Woods, edited by Matthew Levine, group editor Paul Kaminsky. So obviously this takes place before Absolute Power Issue 4, and in this case we are seeing what's going on with some of the foreign superhero teams like Eurocorps and the Global Guardians. We catch up with Night Runner, Jack-o'-lantern, and several others as they try and fight off one of the Amazo bots who has Martian Manhunter's powers, and they are not faring well. At first they seem to be doing okay. They do injure the android, but it does regenerate very quickly, and that gives them all time to argue about what's going on. Unfortunately, that is not going to really grant them any favors. Some of these characters are pretty interesting and have potential, but their use here is very limited and you don't get to see any one of them for any length of time, and they spend more time arguing amongst themselves than anything else in the book. So it's mostly a bunch of heroes trying to find a way to work together, but they don't do it, and they still bicker even when they do something together, and the Amazo bot gets short work of them. Then we do find out what Steve Trevor and his friends are up to, and apparently the events of Wonder Woman number 13 involved a prison break, and Steve Trevor, Wonder Woman, and Damian are leading a bunch of heroes, including Frankenstein from the Creature Commandos, but things aren't going real well for them. Overall, I thought these stories were okay. It would have been better if the heroes in this were a little bit more involved and less talking about bickering and nonsense like that. You mostly just see them and they introduce them and then they don't really do anything except blather on about how much they hate each other, and some of them say, "We need to work together." That's pretty much the entire issue. And the parts with Steve Trevor are meaningless. They add really nothing to this other than to set up what you already know from Absolute Power issue 3 and the other issues about Amanda Waller building a Stargate. I mean, interdimensional doorway. And the art in here is really, really rough. I don't know how a robot's eyes are able to give expression, but you know, that happens a lot. Ghostmaker's in here, but thankfully he doesn't do anything because I don't like that character. But the worst part is the story would probably have been okay if they'd focused on a smaller team and given them a little bit more time to develop character-wise and express something about themselves. The most we get is one or two characters doing that, and the rest are basically window dressing. So it's a wasted opportunity on pretty much every level. Paper quality's crap, the cover is okay at best, and I would say the interior art is largely subpar, and at times horrific, and the story was completely forgettable. So nothing good came of this. I was bored, and I'm glad this miniseries is over. It only had a couple of decent issues. At least they were all standalones, but unfortunately giving them to a bunch of different writers, you really end up with a mixed bag. Same with the art. So I'm not going to recommend this, and as far as the series itself, issue 2 was probably the only one that I would actually say is in any way really relevant to the miniseries as a peripheral book, because it's not even really that connected to the miniseries. It just explains how Aquaman gets from point A to point B, and it was probably the best told of the books. So if you didn't pull these out of a dollar bin or buy the trade paperback at Ollie's for $4, it's probably not going to be worth the time or the money. It's definitely not worth the cover price for this issue or most of the others. So I'd definitely not pay more than $1 or $2 for them, and $2 for the good ones and $1 for every other issue, because this was just too hit and miss. I'm not going to recommend this book. It was incredibly disappointing like most of the rest of the series, but this is by far likely the weakest book, especially on the art. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.